Good evening, my friend. Tonight, our companions on this journey towards rest are two very familiar faces, or should we say, one face and one beard. Yes, we are talking about Legolas, the elf of light steps and poetic gaze, and Gimli, the dwarf of valiant heart and legendary appetite. Two figures as different as the moonlight and the warmth of a forge, and yet, together, they have become part of one of the most unlikely and endearing friendships ever seen along the paths of Middle-earth. But what would an elf and a dwarf be doing in the Shire, right in the golden leaf season? This is one of those tales that begins with an invitation, passes through a tent filled with pies, and ends with lighter hearts and heavier bellies. Between veiled jests, mischief, and the sweet breeze from the west, Legolas and Gimli lead us through a moment where humor meets tenderness, and laughter mingles with the cozy embrace of fall. And even if nothing grand or heroic takes place, there is something profoundly magical in simply being there with them. So, if this is your first time here, settle in and get cozy, enjoy the video, and subscribe to the channel. Sparkle stories like this are meant to be shared on quiet nights, with the sound of leaves outside, or whenever all you need is to rest with a smile. And now, just imagine the sky painted in a soft amber glow, the scent of baked apple in the air, a hall full of cheerful hobbits, and two most unusual guests. Perhaps it is only a festival, or perhaps it is something deeper, revealed only in time. Let yourself be carried away. The morning was cheerfully moving along in the Shire. After the first round of pies, officially called by the hobbits the sweet breakfast, Sam suggested that the guests join him for a short walk around the area. Don't worry, it's part of the festival. We walk a bit, tell stories, and let our stomachs get ready for the next batch, he said, as he put on a wide-brimmed hat and picked up a walking stick more for style than out of need. Gimli looked suspiciously at his own feet. Walking right after eating? That's an odd custom. In the dwarven halls, after a meal we tell jokes. Or sleep. Here, we do both while walking, Sam replied with a smile. Legolas said nothing. He simply rose smoothly and joined the group, with the same lightness as one walking through morning mist on a hill. Yet his gaze betrayed interest. There was something special about this place, or perhaps it was simply the way the hobbits looked at him. The trio followed gravel and packed earth paths, lined with hedgerows and small hand-carved gates. Colorful butterflies drifted by in distracted groups, and the scent of bread with honey still lingered in the air. Soon they reached the turnip field. The land was impeccably kept, with rows as straight as elven roads. They say that if you pass through here alone after sunset, you hear whispers coming from the earth, Sam said casually. But it's just the wind. Or perhaps the murmur of a root trying to grow where it shouldn't. Gimli grunted. If I hear turnips whispering, I swear I'll start digging until I find the culprit. Legolas crouched, ran his fingers over the damp soil, and smiled. There are places where even silence holds stories. This might be one of them. They went on to Alfred Nudge's bridge, a crooked wooden contraption with railings decorated with small cloth flowers. When the wind blew, the planks vibrated with a high, rhythmic sound. Some say it's an old song, Sam remarked. Others would say it's a plank crying for help, countered Gimli. Perhaps it is both, said Legolas. Next, they visited Grandfather Shade, the oldest willow in the village. It grew by a quiet brook whose waters reflected the leaves as though they were fragments of an ancient dream. Rosie swears that every time she's slept beneath this tree, she's dreamt of distant rivers, Sam said. Legolas placed a hand against the thick, mossy trunk. There is something serene here. This willow is so calm it seems to listen to the world around it. Gimli crossed his arms. trees that listen, turnips that whisper, bridges that sing. What's next? Mushrooms that tell jokes. Sam laughed. Only Aunt Esmeralda's. Those really do make everyone laugh. On their way back, close to midday, the festival's main hall was buzzing with life. Pippin and Merry were organizing a new lineup of pies, apple and ginger, fig with caramel, and one which, according to the hand-painted sign, was made with brave raspberries. What do raspberries have to do to be called brave? Gimli asked, frowning. Survive Uncle Largo picking them straight off the bush, Pippin replied. He picks them while shouting verses and chasing away the thrushes. Meanwhile, Legolas approached the table with elegant caution. His eyes fixed on a tall jug, from which a dark, glistening liquid caught the daylight in unexpected reflections. This juice shines, he said, almost in a whisper. It's wild blackberry, Sam explained. Rosie adds edible sugar glitter. Says it makes it happier that way. Legolas regarded the cup as if it were an enchanted relic. Then he served himself and took a small sip. His gaze lifted, and for a moment he seemed to hear something far away, perhaps music, perhaps memory. The taste recalls fruits ripened where the care is full of kindness. Tastes like dessert, Gimli retorted, already holding a full mug. New pies kept arriving, with inventive names and creative presentations. One was called Guava with Wind. That's a flavor now? Gimli asked. It's a feeling, Pippin replied solemnly. Rosie said that when she took the pie out of the oven, the wind blew and she knew it was the right name. Legolas, without irony, commented, Not everything needs to make sense to be beautiful. That's true, Gimli said, taking a bite. This pie makes no sense at all, and it's wonderful. The sun was already leaning in the sky, and the celebration went on with music, stories, and more dishes. The visitors had already tried 5 kinds of pie and, according to Merry, were ready for the next stage, the hot dessert lunch. Legolas, even while trying to maintain his elven composure, was beginning to look happy. There was a faint brightness in his eyes and a looseness in his gestures that even he seemed unaware of. Sam, meanwhile, looked at the two, the elf with eyes like moonlight and the dwarf with heavy steps, and smiled, like someone who recognizes a miracle when they see one. And it was still only the start of the afternoon. As the sun climbed higher in the sky and the shadows of the trees lazily danced across the tables, a special energy began to spread through the festival hall, an almost solemn hum, as though something important were about to happen. And indeed, it was. Merry, chest puffed out and a parchment in hand, climbed onto a chair near the central mast of the main tent. He tapped a wooden spoon against a tray to get everyone's attention, a gesture that might have seemed foolish anywhere else, but here was almost a call to arms. Ladies, gentlemen, and all appreciators of baked pastry, he proclaimed, with the seriousness of one summoning an ancient assembly. The noblest and most hotly contested moment of the Autumn Pie Festival draws near, the legendary contest of 12 flavors. Applause now, whispered Pippin beside him, ringing a little bell out of sync. The tent erupted in claps, laughter, and whistles. Children jumped, adults laughed with cups in hand, and 1 or 2 elders slipped away discreetly, knowing that everyone else's digestion would be long and noisy. Gimli adjusted his belt like a warrior fastening his armor. His eyes gleamed like cut stones under a good torch. 12 pies. 1 stomach. No surrender, he murmured, solemn. That sounds like the name of a war song, Legolas remarked, brows faintly furrowed. It is. Only here the enemy comes wrapped in buttery crust, Gimli replied, already marching toward the central table with military purpose. Sam approached Legolas with a gentle smile. You don't have to join if you'd rather not, Master Elf. But, if you wish, there's a place at the table waiting. Purely out of courtesy, of course. Legolas hesitated. He looked around, at all those faces so alive, so full of hope for something as simple as a joyful afternoon. It was the kind of scene elves preserved in songs, and rarely lived. He sat down. For the sake of diplomacy and the spirit of sharing, I shall accept the challenge, he said, lifting a glass of shining juice with graceful poise. But do not expect heroics. I am more inclined toward contemplation than competition. Gimli snorted. We'll see how long that contemplation lasts when you taste the pear pie with honey and nutmeg. The contest was organized with more enthusiasm than precision. Pippin devised a scoring system based on size, approving remarks, and the number of times a competitor brushed crumbs off their tunic. Merry wrote it all down with a quill far too large for his notebook, and Sam tried to keep the order of the portions straight. The pies began to arrive. First, golden apple pie with toasted cinnamon. Classic, warm, comforting. Crisp crust, tender heart, Gimli assessed after 3 forkfuls. Tastes like mid-morning in a forgotten orchard, Legolas commented after a restrained bite. 1 point each, Pippin shouted. Second pie, plum with wildflower honey. This pie sings, Merry said, already licking his fork. No, that's the bridge that sings. The pie just hums, Gimli countered, puzzled. Legolas, unhurried, brought the fork to his lips. Silence. Then, a faint nod of approval. Third pie, caramelized walnut with lemon zest. This is a trap. First you think it's odd, then you can't stop, Sam commented. I've known battles like that, Gimli muttered, wiping his beard. Fourth pie, date with reduced wine and sweet herbs. Legolas studied it for a while. Then, he tasted it delicately. His eyes lifted, surprised. It tastes like the delicacy of an orchard beneath starlight, he said softly. Merry and Pippin exchanged a moved glance. 2 points for poetry, Pippin declared. Gimli, however, wasn't in the mood for metaphors. This one's treacherous. Starts sweet, then bitter, then sweet again. Just like a cousin of mine. I don't trust it. The fifth pie arrived, raspberry with crackling sugar topping. The crust released tiny sparks of sweetness into the air. Gimli bit in. His eyes lit up. Then he coughed discreetly. A bit bold, he said through his teeth. Legolas looked at him, then took his own slice. He tasted it calmly. Brilliant. But fleeting. Like a lightning bolt that perfumes the sky. 3 points. Merry shouted. That was just too good. By the sixth pie, caramelized fig with aniseed, Legolas was smiling without restraint. His shoulders were looser, and his hands no longer avoided the crumbs that fell. Gimli eyed him sideways. Going to deny you're enjoying this? I admit there is virtue in well-made simplicity, Legolas replied, reaching for another piece. That's the most elvish way I've ever heard of saying it's delicious, Gimli grumbled. As the contest went on, the audience grew. Some quietly wagered on how many pies each would endure. Others simply enjoyed the commentary, Gimli's lines now sounding like war speeches, while Legolas's came like verses from an old diary. Seventh pie, peach with orange blossom essence. The flavor was delicate and surprising. This pie reminds me of a sweet and playful summer, Legolas whispered. Reminds me I need water, Gimli said, already flushed. The pace slowed with the eighth pie, pumpkin with ginger and vanilla cream. Gimli pulled himself together. Legolas now served himself before being invited. The air was festive, but also something more. Cordiality was blossoming between spoonfuls. Friendships were deepening. And as the sun began to descend, painting the sky with amber and copper, Mary announced, "Ladies and gentlemen, only 4 pies remain. The last will be the mythical morning of autumn berry pie. But first, a pause for digestion, contemplation, and random laughter. And maybe a quick nap," Pippin added, already stretching under the table. Legolas set down his cutlery, looking around, children running, adults laughing, bunting dancing in the wind. It was a strange world. Simple. Unpretentious. And for that very reason, enchanting. Gimli crossed his arms over his stomach. "We're in the middle of a war. Only it's of sugar and pride. And both are winning," Legolas said lightly. And so, 2 travelers from distant worlds found themselves on an unusual battlefield, where flavor was the weapon, and friendship the standard. The afternoon stretched like a lazy cat in the sun, and the air of the Shire seemed cradled by a kind of peace that only exists in places forgotten by haste. Bunting fluttered in the light breeze, and the clinking of cups and spoons mingled with the laughter around the tables. After the short pause for digestion, which some used for a nap and others for watching the clouds, the competitors returned with renewed spirits and adjusted belts. Merry, ever theatrical, resumed command of the ceremony with a grand sweep of his extravagant quill. "May the heavens and the ovens bless us. We have reached the final stretch of the contest of 12 flavors," he declared. "And know this, the final pies are known for testing not only the stomach, but the soul," Pippin added. "And self-control. Especially when they're still warm." The 9th pie was brought in with reverence, wild blueberry with lavender and toasted oat cream. Gimli regarded it as one faces a worthy foe. Legolas, as one beholds a rare creature. "The lavender is in the scent. But also in the memory," the elf remarked. Gimli chewed slowly. "This reminds me of my grandfather's workshop. I don't know why. But it's a good memory." Merry sighed. "That's worth an extra point." The 10th pie was strange, beetroot with honey and shards of candied orange peel. The idea was Uncle Toquinho's, known for inventing flavors after visits to the beer barrel. "A bold gamble," Sam said, placing the dish on the table with a raised brow. "Looks like a trap," Gimli said, skeptical. Legolas tasted it first. He paused, took another bite, smiled. "It's like a mad dance between bitter and sweet. A courteous duel." Reluctantly, Gimli tasted it as well. Then, with a hint of surprise, "I don't know if I liked it, or if I was defeated." "That's worth a point too," Pippin commented, jotting notes while eating what remained of the test slice. The 11th pie came simple, almond flour with fresh apricot and mint. The scent was subtle, yet there was something comforting in it, like clean bed linen or a fire in the hearth. Gimli took a spoonful and closed his eyes. This reminds me of home." Legolas watched him in silence, then tasted his own portion, and murmured, "It's a flavor that seeks not to impress, only to welcome." There was no applause, no jesting, just a moment of silence. One of those moments you don't ask for, nor prepare. They simply happen. The sky was beginning to change. The colors of evening appeared at the edges of the horizon like ink diluted on ancient parchment. A soft gold fell across the leaves of the trees, and the light made the tables seem even more inviting. And then, the final pie arrived. It was brought by Rosie herself, wearing a new apron and flowers in her hair. There was something ceremonial in her manner of walking, as though carrying a very old secret. On the round dish rested a pie of modest appearance, without decoration, its crust lightly golden and small berries crowning the top. "The morning of autumn berry pie," she said. "My grandmother's recipe. But they say it's older than that. Made only once a year. And only with fruit picked before the dew has vanished." Pippin and Merry fell silent. Sam simply lowered his hat, as though before something sacred. Gimli swallowed hard. "Looks formidable." Legolas leaned closer, catching the aroma. There was the scent of damp earth, of ripe fruit, and something more, like a memory. It seems familiar, and unknown at the same time. The slices were served with respect. Gimli took the first bite with contained courage. His face stayed serious, then softened. "It's simple. But it's like finding again something you didn't know you'd lost." Legolas tasted his slowly. When he swallowed, he said nothing. He simply closed his eyes for a moment and laid his hand gently upon the table. It was Sam who broke the silence. "They say that anyone who eats this pie, even just once, never forgets the taste." "Or the day," Rosie added, already heading back to the kitchen. The contest was over. But no one stood. No one declared a winner. There was no need. Pippin closed the parchment with his notes. "I think we all won. Or perhaps we were all defeated by the pies. Hard to say." Merry simply nodded. The sun was already leaning low, and longer shadows were claiming the ground. The children now played in quiet, as if the day itself were drawing to a gentle close. Gimli ran a hand through his beard, brushing the last crumbs from his beard with an unusually gentle expression. "You know, there was a time I believed only stone halls could hold lasting things." Legolas looked at him. "And today?" Gimli did not answer. He simply took another small piece of the pie and chewed with reverence. Legolas looked up at the sky. "Sometimes I think the simplest moments are the ones that survive the ages." Sam smiled. He placed more wood under the cider pot and said, "And tomorrow we'll still wake up hungry." They all laughed. Not a loud laugh, but one that warms, like the steam rising from mugs on cold mornings. And that late afternoon, the Shire breathed, between pies and stories, between flowers and embers, like an old heart that had never stopped beating. The night did not arrive suddenly. It came slowly, like an old friend who knows the house well and enters without knocking. The Shire's sky dressed itself in deep blue, and the first stars blinked between the branches of the trees as if to say, "We are still here." Bellies were full, laughter less frequent. Children were already yawning, with flowers in their hair and crumbs on their clothes. Some hobbits dozed on cushions, others spoke softly in the glow of lit lanterns. And among them, 3 figures remained awake: Sam, Legolas, and Gimli. The back porch of the house was empty, save for a small table, 3 benches, and a pitcher of frothy beer. There was also a bowl of nuts, 2 clay cups, and a pewter tankard, each object seeming as though it had belonged to the scene long before it was placed there. Sam, still the host even after the festival had ended, brought 3 final slices of the morning of autumn berry pie. "They say eating another slice at night guarantees good dreams," he remarked, sitting down with a satisfied sigh. "And your people say many things," Gimli commented, biting in without hesitation. "But that sounds like one of the better ones." Legolas touched the pie with his fingers, as if reluctant to disturb something sacred. Then he tasted it. "There is something different when we eat in silence," he said, looking at the sky. "As though the flavor becomes true. Or more deserved," Sam added. The stars were especially clear that night. A cool wind blew from the east, carrying the scent of warm cider and sleeping flowers. In the distance, a song could be heard, gentle, slow, carried by small, contented voices. It was not a festival tune, but the kind one sings while putting away the cutlery and dousing the lanterns. That sound reminds me of something, Gimli said, scratching his beard. Perhaps an old night in the halls of Erebor, or perhaps a night that never happened. Legolas lifted his gaze, and his voice was as low as the wind. Some memories don't need to have happened to be real. Sam looked at them both with calm eyes. His ceramic cup was still full, but his hands held it as if it were part of him. Mr. Frodo used to say some nights feel as though they're meant to remember all that is yet to come. Gimli raised a brow. Is that an elvish thing? No, Sam replied. It's a thing learned by those who know that tomorrow sometimes needs yesterday's help to make sense. Silence. A good silence, like the kind that precedes the first star or follows the last chord of a song. Gimli leaned back on the wooden bench, which creaked with dignity. His eyes were half closed, yet watchful. I must admit, Sam, your people have something rare. You make joy into a habit. An habit into an art. Sam chuckled. Well, joy doesn't grow on trees, but here we plant it where we can. And harvest when it's ready. Legolas slowly turned the cup in his hands. The candlelight danced in his eyes. Time feels different here. Not like in my realm, where all things echo what has been. Nor like in the mountains, where each stone bears the weight of ages. Here, time seems to walk hand in hand with the now. That's because you two think too much, Gimli grumbled. In the Shire, we live the day. And the day takes care of the rest. They all laughed. It was a short laugh, but a full one. Sam rose slowly and returned with a small object, a polished wooden box with a lid carved with leaves. This was Bilbo's. He kept seeds, small stones, and folded scraps of paper with ideas for songs, he said, placing the box on the table. Every so often, I like to open it and see what he left. Gimli leaned in, curious. And what's in there? Sam opened it. Inside were 3 perfectly round seeds, a bluish stone that looked ordinary but was not, and a yellowed scrap of paper. In fine, careful script, it read. Not every flavor needs to last forever. It only needs to last long enough to be remembered. B.B. Legolas read it in silence and smiled. Bilbo always knew what to say. Even when no one was listening, Sam added. The sky was now speckled with stars like a silver tapestry. A firefly passed before them like a little lantern in flight. In the distance, the song's sound faded, leaving only the chirping of crickets and the whisper of the wind. You know, Gimli said, looking at the sky. Most stories are about great deeds. Wars. Crowns. Torn maps. But no one sings about pies. Perhaps it's time they did, Legolas replied. I'm in favor, Sam said. As long as they don't insult my crust. More laughter. More good silence. Legolas rose slowly and walked to the edge of the porch. He looked out over the sleeping fields, the low torches, and the small rooftops under the night. His face was serene, yet his gaze wandered far. There is something in this land that cannot be explained. Something that doesn't need to be great to be eternal. Or perhaps it's just the effect of the ninth pie, Gimli muttered, pouring himself more beer. Legolas laughed. Could be. Sam folded his hands over his belly. I think that when you both leave, you'll take more than memories with you. You'll take a little of the hobbit way of seeing the world. And leave a little of ours as well, Legolas added. Hopefully the tidier part, Gimli murmured, glancing at the crumbs in his beard. Then they fell silent again, unhurried. The moon appeared, white and round, between 2 thin clouds. Its light touched the faces of the 3 in different ways, On Gimli, it revealed firmness, on Sam, tenderness, on Legolas, a longing that was not sadness. And on that simple porch, without thrones or banners, 3 seated figures shared something that kings and armies often forget, that peace, at times, fits within a slice of pie, a mug of beer, or a good conversation. The night moved forward in silence, as if it feared to break the spell of the day that was ending. The Shire was drifting into sleep. One by one, windows went dark, campfires faded, and footsteps softened into murmurs over the damp grass. Gimli still sat on the porch, his boots now resting on a small stool, a small piece of the last pie balanced on a napkin. Legolas remained standing, leaning against the wooden pillar, gazing east, as if listening to some ancient murmur from faraway lands. Sam had left with a wide yawn and a sincere hug, carrying Bilbo's little box, a bottle of cider, and a smile that seemed to come from the youth of his soul. That left the elf and the dwarf, sitting side by side like sentinels of a memory in the making. Gimli took a final bite. "Darn it. I'm out of words. This is your fault." "Mine?" asked Legolas, raising an eyebrow. "Elves. Always making us feel things that have no name," he replied, folding his arms. Legolas smiled. The night breeze moved slowly, touching leaves and thoughts. A lone firefly traced the air before them, and for a moment, both followed it with their eyes as if it were a good omen. Distant torches flickered like echoes, and moonlight spread gently over the fields. "When I think of all the lands I've seen," said Legolas after a long pause, "there are few I will keep as I will keep this day." Gimli grunted, but without irritation. "Because there was pie. Because there was laughter," the elf countered. "An ale," Gimli insisted. "And silence," Legolas added softly. Another pause. Not of awkwardness, of contemplation. "You know," said the dwarf after a few minutes, "I never understood why hobbits like to sing so much about gentle rain, fat hens, and sleeping seeds. But today, I think I do. It's not about what's sung. It's about who it's sung for," answered Legolas. Gimli's eyes glimmered for a moment. "If they write a song about this day, let it be with simple words. And let it speak more of the table than the quarrel. Then it will be a worthy song," said Legolas. In the distance, a rooster tried a confused crow, fooled by the brightness of the moon. Mist began forming over the fields, climbing slowly among pumpkin patches and bean rows. A new kind of stillness was born, the kind that only exists when all is at peace, and no one is pretending to be someone they are not. "We should leave at dawn," Legolas said, almost in a whisper. Gimli nodded. "It's the right thing. But not the easy thing." "Never is," the elf agreed. They both rose. Gimli's bench groaned in protest, and Legolas, with a light gesture, straightened the cloth on the table as if he were tending to an altar. "I'll take a seed with me," said Legolas. "One of those from Bilbo's box. Sam offered it to me. Said they grow best when carried with good intent." "And where will you plant it?" asked Gimli. "I don't know yet. But I'll know when the time comes." They walked in silence to the garden gate. The closed flowers seemed to sleep. The wind, now colder, stirred the grass as if the world whispered stories no one else could hear. They stopped by the wooden fence, where 2 ponies slept in peace. "Legolas," said Gimli without turning. "Do you remember when I first met you? I remember an elf who didn't know the dwarf's name grumbling beside him." "And today?" asked the dwarf. "Today, there is pie between us," replied the elf, and both chuckled softly. The last star appeared in the sky. "Farewell, Shire," murmured Legolas. "Until the next pie," corrected Gimli with a wave. They mounted, without hurry, and rode off. There was only the sound of light hooves over the soft earth, and a trail of good silence that lingered behind them like the scent of apples on a late afternoon. And if someone asked, years later, what two heroes did in a land without walls or swords, the answer would be simple. They laughed. They ate. And they remembered that peace is also worthy of memory. And for a long time, when the moon was full and pies were in the oven, the hobbits would say, with pride, and perhaps a touch of exaggeration, that in that year, an elf and a dwarf taught the Shire a new recipe for friendship. The night wrapped the land like an old quilt, and the stars peeked between golden leaves, unrushed. The laughter had faded, but left good echoes. It was as if every piece of that moment whispered, "Now you can rest." Perhaps you are there too, at this end of the feast. Sitting in the shade of a gentle tree, listening to the last note of a flute or the wind passing through the hedgerows. There is nothing more to be done tonight, only to close your eyes, breathe deeply, and let the peace that touched Legolas and Gimli reach your heart as well. Good night,